Welcome back to Sunday Night Dinners with Deborah. So it's hot here. It got really hot really fast. And I don't feel like heating up the whole house making Sunday night dinner. So what I'm making tonight is bruschetta. Now, can bruschetta be a whole meal? Absolutely. When you include homemade bread, beautiful fresh ricotta, and homemade bruschetta. So let's get started. I've got a whole host of ingredients here. It doesn't take very many, but you want them to be really fresh, really vibrant. So I'm starting out by mincing up 3 cloves of garlic. You don't want to use the store-bought jar stuff because that has a bitter taste. You might not taste it in something that's cooked because this is going to be raw. You would taste that bitterness. There's a secret, I think I've shown it before. To make it easier to do a fine dice on garlic, add a few drops of oil because that works kind of as a glue to keep it from bouncing around your board so much. And the bell ringing is my dog George, who wants to go outside. Yes, my puppies tell me they want to go outside by ringing a set of jingle bells hanging off of my patio door. So I'm going to have to go and let him out. And there we have the garlic beautifully minced up. So I'm just going to drop this into a small bowl. I'm not making a huge amount, but I would like to have a little bit left over. Now I have some basil that I picked out of my garden this morning, and I'm just going to trim the leaves off. I've got about 1/4 of a cup. To me, the smell of summer is the smell of basil. And this is just it's called large leaf Italian and lettuce leaf basil. You kind of roll the herbs together as much as possible into a tight little bundle, and then barely lifting your blade off of the cutting board, you just make a nice small slice. It's called a chiffonade. But I don't want it to stay as chiffonade, but it's the quickest way to cut it right down. So I go crosswise again. And now it's minced quite nicely. Again, see? Lovely. Into the bowl it goes. I have these beautiful early onions. These are actually spring onions. And they're a young bulb. I just cut the ends off. And I'm cutting all the green off because I don't want the green. And I am going to peel the outer edge. Make a little slice down the center. Now I'm not throwing out these ends of the onions. I'm going to use them in other things. The other day I made some ramen soup and I used those in the broth to flavor it, and it was lovely. I'm using a standard onion cut. But because it's not a standard onion size, we will have to do a rough chop after. And the little bit of stem I just cut in half. Rough chop after, just in case any corner pieces stayed of a larger size. No. So this created about almost a 1/2 cup of minced spring onion. And I am kind of making the measurements as I go because it depends on how large of a batch it makes. I'm just doing a quick stir because right now I just have my aromatics. So now I'm going to add, at this time, a teaspoon of sugar into that garlic and onion, just so that it mellows it out. Just sprinkled on top, and I shall give it a stir. And now on to our tomatoes. Now these are lovely tomatoes. I did not grow them. My tomatoes aren't ready yet, but they just look so lovely at the market. This is a tomato witch. It's got little teeth, and it is a helpful tool for taking out the cores perfectly from the tomato. So you just circle it around and you have a perfect tomato. Now, could this be done with a paring knife? Certainly, but when you are doing a lot of tomatoes, it's a very good thing. And the other thing that's easier to use with tomatoes is a serrated knife. I have just a small one. I think I got this from IKEA probably 35 years ago, but I've never had to sharpen it, and it just works perfectly. So to dice the tomatoes, you just make about 1/2-inch slices. Now if you have Roma tomatoes, use the Romas, less seeds. And then I am doing cross cuts of a 1/2-inch, and then just down 1/2-inch. And I only do 2 slices at a time or so. These are very ripe tomatoes, so that they are going to be very sweet. So now I've got all my tomatoes, and I'm taking the cutting board to my bowl, and I am going to scoop it off so that the liquid from the tomatoes goes into that bruschetta. And now I just mix it up. And I want to look at it to see if it's to be tomato forward, but you still want a very strong presence of the onion, garlic. Oh yes. You know what? I think I'm going to add 1 more tomato to this. So let's see, is this right? Yeah, that's the right proportion. Because it always depends on the size of your tomatoes. So now, I need some more flavorings. I'm going to add about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of fresh cracked pepper, and this is where it counts. There we go. And now I have my balsamic dressing that I made. If you don't have it made, I do have the recipe for it in another video. I'll link that below. Or you can use store-bought. And I'm adding a 1/4 cup and a 1/4 cup of olive oil or a neutral oil. If you've been around very long, you know that I'm not a big fan of olive oil, so I'm just using a neutral oil. Now, if you can see, it's quite almost soupy, I would say. There's a lot of dressing in that. But what that is flavoring your vegetables. So now we get to construct the actual bruschetta. So I'm setting this aside. I have beautiful round of ricotta. And I have my homemade bread. So I'm going to slice 2 slices of bread, and then I'm going to toast them. Now you can fry them in a frying pan, you can toast them on a barbecue, but I just throw them in the toaster, to be honest, and that way I'm not heating up the whole house. And you want them to be fairly thin. Again, you want to use a bread knife. So see, I've got quite a thin slice, you can see, compared to my finger. So I'm just going to take it to the toaster. The beautiful thing about this bruschetta is it's great for throwing into a pasta salad or a hot pasta dish, to throw it on top of nachos. I think that I'm going to do that tomorrow. It's great spooned over grilled chicken breasts. It's so versatile. And then throw it into a tossed salad. And then with all that tomato dressing that is in that bruschetta, use that to dress another salad. Absolutely versatile. You won't regret it. So my toast is just lightly toasted. I want the ricotta, so I'm going to put it on mine. And this is a lovely ricotta from a Mediterranean store that's nearby me, but any store brand ricotta is just fine. My husband does not like ricotta. He's anti-ricotta. So what I'm going to do is I have my bruschetta. I am going to strain it a little bit just by pushing it to the edge so that it gets some of the juice but not all of the juice. And just lay that straight on his toast. Now if you want, you could serve this alongside of a grilled chicken breast, or a small piece of white fish would be lovely. So his is done. On top of my ricotta, I'm putting a little bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper, and as you can see, it's not very much at all. And again, that little bit of mostly drained. You want some of the juices because that's what flavors it, and you want it to soak into that toast. Now if you're thinking, this is almost like a little pizza. Yeah, it kind of is. Probably was the precursor to pizzas. And there we go. And there's mine with the ricotta. Super fast, super easy, so delicious, perfect for a very hot Sunday night dinner. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again.